The time for mourning is a complicated time, filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers and, and recollections of Ruben's life. We link him with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people of Israel and the eternity of God. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai Ose shamayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai Ose shamayim va'aretz. Esa einai El heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai, mi yagor be'ohalecha, mi yishkon b'har kodshecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet b'levavo, lo ragal al lishano, lo asa l're'ehu ra'ah, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. A psalm of David. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit, have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others. Do not mistreat your neighbor, spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere God. Never retract a promise, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates, accept no bribes. Make these deeds your own. Then you shall stand firm forever. Adonai ro'i lo echsar bina'ot desha yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yanachaleni nafshi yishovev, yancheni b'ma'aglei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech b'gei tzal mavet lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha hema yanachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi rivaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. As a father has compassion for his children, God has compassion for those who show reverence. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are but dust. The days of mortals are like grass. We flourish as the flower of the field, but a wind passes over them, and the flowers are no more, and no one can recognize where they grew. But God's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children, to all the reverent ones, endures age after age, unchanging. Torat emet hayta befihu, ve'avla lo nimtza b'svatav, v'shalom u'mishur halach iti, v'rabim heshiv me'avon. True instruction was on his lips, and he did not give voice to injustice. He walked with God in peace and honesty and turned many away from sin. There is no replacing a person of wisdom. There are mines for silver and places where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth, and copper is smelted from the rock. But where can wisdom be found? And where is the source of understanding? There is no replacing a man of wisdom. L'chol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim, et laredet ve'et lamut, et lata'at ve'et la'akor natua, et laharog ve'et lirpo, et lifrotz ve'et livnot, et livkot ve'et lishchok, et safod ve'et rekod. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for planting, a time for reaping, a time for keeping, a time for discarding, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for embracing, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep, a time to dance and a time to wail, a time for giving birth and a time to die. We pause now in the service for some words of memory on Ruben's behalf. Both of his children have elected to speak, so I call first on Mazda to say a few words.
Okay, I'm going to try not to talk very long because my wife said I cannot cry up here. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. I've always been around my dad. I've lived here, never dreamed of moving away so I could be around my mom and dad. And what I always was with my dad helping him. So when we were young, we went to Florida one time, and my dad didn't always keep up on his car maintenance. So we were in Florida, and the engine in the car went out in Florida. So his idea was to put my mom and me and my sister in the stranger's car to go get help. And we did get help. Everything was okay. We didn't get kidnapped. And we had to leave his car down there. He had to get a whole new engine in it. And we went back. We took a rental car, went home. And the next week, he's like, me and you, we're going to go to Florida and get the car. So we drove straight through. My dad is like, I'm not stopping. It drove straight through. He showed me you can just power through just about anything. And that's his whole life. So we stayed in a hotel. He was so happy that we were together, you know, like it was just me and him doing something. We got the car. I didn't sleep great in the hotel. I probably needed my mom a little bit. I was trying to take care of him. He was showering. I was helping him balance, like all that stuff. When I was probably Bobby's age. We got the car. We drove back. We just straight through, drove back again. So we had a bunch of time together. I can't tell you a lot of times that it was just me and him. And this was when I was young. We went to a lot of football games and basketball games. It was the thing we did together. We always did it. I sometimes didn't want to do it. Sometimes I was tired and didn't want to go take him. And I regret that, but we still did it a lot. I have hundreds of football and basketball tickets. And before Mizzou left the SEC, I got tickets to the SEC tournament or the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. So we went up, watched them win first game. I think we might have missed the second round. I went up, I took him back. I might have gone the third round by myself, and then I took him to the fourth round, and we won the Big 12 tournament last year, won the Big 12. And that's one of my best memories of we going to do something super special, and it would be a good memory for me. So I'm lucky I had my dad for 45 years, and he'll be missed. We'll miss him a lot. I'll miss taking care of him, but I'll miss his presence a lot. So, thank you, everybody.
My father, Behzad Ruben Hakimi, was born June 16th, 1946 in Mashhad, Iran. He came from a large, lively, loving family with 3 siblings, 5 aunts, 5 uncles, and numerous cousins. Like, I don't know how many. We haven't been able to count. He lived in his grandfather's home when he was young, surrounded constantly with love and playfulness. My father's grandfather lived in a time where Jewish people were forced to live as Muslims. And his grandfather, my great grandfather, Ali Muhammad, lived a Muslim life outside of the home, but maintained Judaism secretly in the home. After a Muslim uprising against the Jews in Mashhad, my father and all aunts and uncles moved from Mashhad to Tehran, and that was approximately 1953. He continued to live with his siblings in his great-grandfather's home, surrounded by the love of his aunts and uncles until he was 12, where his father moved their family into their own home. He grew up very social and loved sports and enjoyed being athletic. My father adored hiking the Alborz Mountains north of Iran, always bringing great energy to the challenge, making sure he was hiking the fastest and getting up there the most quickly. My father loved playing soccer and volleyball in his youth. He was a natural leader amongst his cousins, especially his cousins, and he taught his younger cousins many things, from swimming to riding a bike. My father attended a math and science high school in Tehran named after the same Alborz Mountains that he enjoyed hiking. He had a passion for education and learning and moved to the US in 1964 to pursue higher education, as many of his peers did as well. With the support of his uncle, Lou, in Chicago, he started school in Dodge City, Kansas, and finished his undergraduate degree at Oklahoma State University. He learned to love playing tennis and also won the ping pong champion. He was the ping pong champion while at Oklahoma State University. At the University of Missouri, he obtained his master's degree in applied mathematics, and he used it to pursue a career in computer science. My father returned to Iran in 1970 when he was 24, where he instantly fell in love with my mother. With her fair hair, skin, and eyes, had a whirlwind engagement and wedding. My mother was only 16, which was the custom at that time in Iran. But my father's mother knew my mother's family well and knew they would be a good match. My mother is a natural nurturer and caretaker. She created a loving home full of happiness and good food. My father loved my mother dearly, always acknowledging her beauty and making sure their financial future was secure, as taught to him by his own father. My father dedicated his career supporting the University of Missouri Hospital's radiology IT department. His specialty was programming in MUMPS. It's one of the very first programming languages developed specifically for hospital laboratory information systems. He developed one of the first imaging systems. His expertise kept him with the university for 43 years until he finally retired at 67. My father was both deeply respected and treasured by the university hospital community. Playing cards, backgammon, and games is a huge part of our family culture. My father loved playing cards, from poker to bridge, from canasta to hook. He always was a challenging adversary. He would never just let us win. He especially loved when he could play games with the congregation here. I can't remember a time where he was more proud of himself when he played well in a poker tournament. He inspired me to do the same. He also had a tremendous love for sports. Mazda talked about that a little. He's had season tickets to Missouri football and basketball games for as long as I could remember. One of our favorite family memories is watching the Chiefs win the Super Bowl with him. My son Noah still talks about the SEC West Championship game we attended with my father that all the Mizzou fans stormed the field after. Watching sports with my father was always a family event. My father noticed his muscles were weakening when he was 18 years old. Running and playing tennis became more difficult for him. They biopsied his muscles a couple of times in his 20s and diagnosed him with muscular dystrophy. We later learned it's a genetic neuromuscular disease called HIBM, hereditary inclusion body myopathy, that is pervasive through the Iranian Jewish community. Instead of pulling away from life with the challenges of his disease, he embraced every part of life he could. My father had a natural resilience, and Grace continued to make the most of his life. He taught us all to do the same. My father's stoicism is one of his greatest characteristics. My father never complained about his disease. He modeled tremendous adaptivity by always learning new ways to enjoy his life. It's almost as if he would come alive by watching sports. He loved his grandchildren running around him no matter how much noise they would make. He always kept his mind sharp by keeping up with the news and culture. I try to live the same way he has. I've had challenges in my life. My father was always there to make sure that I focused on my ability to be resilient and persevere. My father is one of the most modest people you would ever know. His intelligence was a secret weapon. Despite his physical handicap, he was always supporting his family and the community with his wisdom. He was on the finance committee at the synagogue. He supported charities that were focused on food-deprived populations, especially in the Central Missouri Food Bank. If you had a problem in your life, my father would listen and always was ready to give great advice. On Sunday, my father, this strong, stoic man who had been on a ventilator for a week, communicated he was ready to go without being able to speak. He made those decisions in the end, helped us and our family like he always has. Just like he took care of us through his whole life, he took care of us at the end. I want to thank my mother and brother for the tireless care they've given him. It's been very hard for a long time, especially the last few months and the last year and a half. There's no way he would have lived such a long, happy life without them. I hope to honor my father's memory by passing down his love of love of family, relentless zest for life, and his focus on chesed, giving back to the world. I know if I do these things, my father will continue to be proud of me, my children, and their grandchildren. Thank you.
In the end, it seems, at first blush, we are all ordinary mortals. We come into the world, we make a life, and we pass on. But it's the making the life part that distinguishes us, that sets us apart, that defines our place in the world. Ruben Hakimi was anything but ordinary. Rather, he was an extraordinary human being, living a life filled with adventure, accomplishment, and love. I begin with his immigrant experience. Apparently, American Midwestern universities were in the practice of recruiting at the technical high school that Ruben attended in Tehran, which brought him to the States in 1964, originally to a community college in Dodge City, where I guess he didn't want to be a gunslinger, so he wasn't so happy there. But the community college helped him learn English. Eventually, he made his way to Mizzou, as we heard, and got a master's degree in math with a specialty in computers. This enabled him to enter the computer industry in its infancy. This was during the primeval era of computer technology. He found work at the university hospital where he remained for his entire working life, as we heard, for 43 years. There he created a radiology software using an old computer language, mumps, as we heard, which program was used until past his retirement. He knew the program by heart. Apparently, if there was a problem, even after retirement, they would call him up with the problem and he could direct them. And I don't understand this at all, I'm afraid. He would direct them where in the program to go to fix the problem. Following the custom of many, if not most, of his immigrant peers, Ruben returned to Iran seeking a spouse from his native country. And what a spouse he found. He and Mandana met at a meal arranged for them by a relative. They fell in love and were married, as we say in Hebrew, chick-chock, in short order, that is to say, within 2 weeks. Ruben returned to the States first, but Mandana did not linger in Iran for very long. She followed him back to the US, to Missouri, to Colombia. And so this part of Ruben's story, I need to say, Ruben Hakimi immigrated to these shores, learned the language, became an American, which is not such an easy thing to do, and especially from a country like Iran, acquired a valuable profession, found himself an Iranian wife, settled into Columbia, Missouri for the long haul, built a family, built a life, made friends, found a community, and lived a long, happy life here. Easy, right? From one country to another, one language to another, one culture to another, no big deal, right? Well, I can't know for certain myself, never having experienced this, but I don't believe we're speaking about a day at the beach. Ruben faced the challenges immigrants face. And if in retrospect it looks easy, don't fool yourself. Yet he did it and made that life with Mandana, his life partner, with whom he had Netta and Mazda, their son and daughter. He built that world with Mandana using intelligence, generosity, strength, persistence, and love. He was rewarded with a family that loves and respects him, children who learned from him, played with him, loved their father back the way he loved them. But that's only a piece of Ruben's story, because it's no secret, and we learned about this from Netta just a moment ago. It's no secret that several decades ago, Ruben Hakimi was afflicted with an illness that put him into a wheelchair and forced him to learn how to live with a serious handicap. There can be no doubt that this development caused Ruben some anxiety and depression. A man accustomed to independence had to learn how to rely on the kindness of his family, friends, and the disability of his body, and he had to learn how to work with his work associates to help him get through the day. But here's the remarkable thing, and this is hardly a secret to those of you who knew him. The life that he and Mandana and Netta and Mazda built together in the light of his handicap was filled with life, with energy and activity. And I have to say something not in my prepared remarks. This was a symbiosis. The family helped him, and in return, he responded and continued to be able to help them. Without the family configuration, Ruben would have been a different man. His life would have been different, but it wasn't, and he was quite successful. He did not permit his handicap to limit his life, and as long as his family was there, Ruben Hakimi continued living a full life. He continued working, as we heard, until age 67, his work partners providing the things he needed to continue functioning. He continued enjoying life. True, he could no longer participate in sports, but he learned to love and watch sports, including Mizzou football and basketball, and apparently hundreds of times, live and in person. He continued hosting family for meals, especially Shabbat dinners, and those of you who have been honored to be guests at Shabbat know it was quite something. He continued advising his children on a host of matters that helped keep their lives steady. He saw to it they went to college. He took great pride in their accomplishments, in the families they created, and in the communities of which they were a part. He continued investing, giving to charity, especially charities that fought hunger. He supported this institution, Congregation Beth Shalom. In short, the challenge of his disability compelled Ruben to find within himself great reservoirs of strength and resilience that would keep him active and engaged until the very end. And surely part of the sadness of Ruben's passing is the cessation of that amazing strength, for the life of this man formed an icon of these very qualities. A man confined to a wheelchair nonetheless built a life that people respected, that he could live and enjoy. He always continued to be a man beloved by his large family and by the community he long ago became part of here in Colombia. And so the world that he created with Mandana, Netta, and Mazda is now made empty by Ruben's departure, and we all feel it. His beloved grandchildren who call him Baba can dwell in his memory with the memory of someone who played with them, watched sporting events with them, who kibitzed with them. In his absence, Ruben Hakimi leaves behind an extraordinary legacy and will continue that legacy, and he will continue to shine upon his family and all of us, even in his absence. And this light will comfort and inspire for a very long time. Ruben leaves behind Netta and her children Jacob, Noah, and David, Mazda, his wife Raz, and their children Aliyah and Bobby, his sister Sarah, and of course his beloved Mandana. Zichrono livracha, may his memory always be for a blessing. Amen. There will be 3 Shiva Minyanim. The first one tonight at Mandana and Ruben's house at 311 Cumberland Road at 7 p.m. Tomorrow, Wednesday, at the home of Raz and Mazda, 3809 Frontenac Place, and we'll publicize this. And next Monday, the last night of Shiva at Ruben's and Mandana's. Shiva will be held at 7 p.m. I ask you all to please rise. El Malay Rachamim Shochein Ba'miromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat HaKanfei HaShechina V'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Tuharim Kazoha Harakia Masirim Et Nishmat Ruven Ben Yaakov Shahalach Le'olamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchato Ana baharachamim hastirete v'seter kenafecha le'olamim. Utzrar b'tzrar chaim et nishmato. Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar amen. El molei rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Ruven ben Yaakov, who is gone to his eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And together, ladies and gentlemen, we say, Amen. This concludes our service. If you could be seated for a moment, please. Well, the moment was right. Yeah, please.
Mulder, if you would, kind of help us here. We'll get you each on either side.
Are we rolling?
Yeah, we're gonna roll.
You want Jacob on the other side?
No, we're rolling. It's okay.
Oh,
Get in there, Bobby.
There you go. Yep.
I mean, we're just gonna roll it.
We're just gonna roll there.
Mizmor David.